Stop composting, seriously, I mean it. For the last 5 years, I've been doing this all wrong. I've been turning my compost pile twice a week, I've been managing temperatures, and I've been waiting 6 months to a year for my organic matter to break down into usable compost. And you know what I realize? There's a German gardening technique that's been around for centuries, and it does everything my compost pile does, except it requires zero turning, zero maintenance, and zero waiting. It's called Hügelkultur. And I'm not talking about some trendy modern hack. This is a farming method that people have been using in Germany and Eastern Europe since at least the 1960s, though it probably goes back way further. The technique is so powerful that Paul Wheaton, one of the world's most respected permaculture experts, now builds beds up to 7 feet tall using this method. And Sepp Holzer, an Austrian farmer, took this concept and scaled it to entire farms, with some of his installations stretching nearly a kilometer long. And here's the kicker. While you're waiting for your compost to finish, a Hugelkultur bed is simultaneously building fertility, storing water, and feeding your plants for potentially the next 20 to 30 years, all without you doing a single thing. Today I'm going to show you exactly how it works. I'll explain why a German farmer decided this was the future of gardening. I'll walk you through construction, and yes, it's easier than you think, and I'll address the one misconception that's keeping people from building these beds. What exactly is Hugelkultur? Let me give you the official definition first, and then I'll explain it in normal human language. Hugelkultur, pronounced Hugelkultur, is a horticultural technique in which a mound is constructed from decaying wood debris and other compostable biomass plant materials and is then planted as a raised bed. That's the technical definition, but here's what that actually means in practice. Imagine you have a bunch of fallen logs in your yard, dead branches, rotting wood, the kind of stuff that most people burn or chip up and haul to a landfill. What if instead of getting rid of that wood, you intentionally buried it under your garden? That's Hugelkultur. You take that wood, the logs, the branches, the organic waste, and you bury it about 3 feet deep. Then you layer organic material on top of it. Grass clippings, leaves, compost, manure, whatever organic matter you have lying around. And finally, you cover it all with soil and plant your vegetables directly into the top. Now here's what makes this genius. As that wood sits underground, it doesn't just decompose. It decomposes slowly over years. And as it decomposes, it does 4 things simultaneously. First, it releases nutrients into the soil. We're talking nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, all the things plants need to grow. But it releases them slowly and steadily over time, not all at once. A large Hugelkultur bed might give you a constant nutrient supply for 20 years. In cool climates like Montana or Canada, we're talking 60 years of nutrient release. Second, it absorbs water like a sponge. When it rains, the water penetrates deep into the mound and gets absorbed by all that buried wood. The wood holds onto that water and releases it slowly to your plants during dry spells. Some gardeners report they don't need to water their Hugelkultur beds at all after the first year, except during long-term droughts. Third, as the wood shrinks and breaks down, it creates tiny air pockets throughout the soil. This aerates your bed without you having to do anything. Your soil becomes fluffy and well-drained, and the decomposing wood literally does the tilling for you. And fourth, it generates heat. In the first year or two, as the decomposition process is most active, the mound produces warmth. This can extend your growing season by a week or two on both ends, giving you fresher spring plants and later fall harvests. All of that happens automatically. You don't turn it, you don't monitor temperatures, and you don't wait for it to finish decomposing. Why did the Germans figure this out? Honestly, I think it comes down to practicality and history. In Germany and Eastern Europe after World War II, the landscape was covered in fallen wood. Bombed-out buildings had debris everywhere, and forests had damage. There was just an enormous amount of organic waste with nowhere to put it. In many European countries at the time, burning wasn't allowed. Environmental regulations were already becoming stricter than they were in America. So German gardeners faced a problem. How do you deal with this massive amount of wood waste without burning it or burying it in a landfill? Some brilliant person, historians say it was a gardener named Hermann Andra, in 1962, though the technique might be older than that. realize, what if we don't get rid of this wood? What if we use it? They noticed something. When wood accumulated naturally in forests, it created incredibly fertile soil. Dead trees fell over, leaves and branches accumulated. The whole thing decomposed slowly, and the result was this rich, dark, living soil full of nutrients and life. Plants grew better in these areas, and forests regenerated faster. So they started intentionally replicating that process in their gardens. They'd bury the wood, layer in organic materials, and let nature do what it does naturally in a forest. The method caught on, especially after permaculture became popular in the 1980s and 1990s. That's when a man named Sepp Holzer, an Austrian permaculture advocate and farmer, took the concept even further. He started building massive Hügelkultur mounds, some of them 6 or 7 feet tall. He treated entire farms this way, creating installations stretching nearly a kilometer, and his results were so good that he became famous. Now, if you go to permaculture conferences anywhere in the world, you'll hear about Sepp Holzer's methods. Interestingly, Holzer never called his system Hugelkultur. He just called it gardening. But what he was doing, stacking organic matter, letting it decompose, and creating incredibly fertile beds, that's exactly what Hugelkultur is. And that's kind of where we are today. It's a proven, centuries-old technique that somehow never caught on in mainstream American gardening, but it's getting more popular now as people realize this actually works and you get all the benefits of composting without the work. Let me break down the science of why this works so well, and I'm going to use analogies that will make this click for you immediately. Let's start with water, because it's the most visible benefit and it's the most game-changing. When you bury wood underground, you've essentially created an underground moisture battery. Think of it like a giant sponge, a really, really big sponge. Wood is incredibly absorbent. A single log can hold enormous amounts of water. When it rains, the water doesn't just run off or drain down to the water table. Instead, it penetrates into your mound. It filters through the soil, through the decomposing layers, and down into those buried logs. The wood absorbs all that water and holds on to it. Then during dry spells, when your neighboring gardens are getting stressed and their plants are wilting, your Hugelkultur bed is releasing water slowly from those underground logs. Your plants can tap into that stored moisture so they never get stressed. Research has shown that Hugelkultur beds can reduce irrigation needs by 50 to 75% compared to traditional gardens, especially in dry climates. Some studies show that after the first year, you might not need to water your Hugelkultur bed at all except during extreme droughts. I know that sounds like marketing hype, but the science is solid. Wood holds water, lots of it. A 2-foot tall bed will hold moisture for about 3 weeks, a 4-foot bed for maybe a month, and a 6-foot bed you might not need to water it all summer. And here's something else. The quality of the water matters. When your plants are tapping into water stored in decomposing wood, they're not just getting water. They're getting water rich in dissolved nutrients released by that decomposition process. It's like having a slow-release fertilizer drip system built into your garden. Now let's talk about food and the nutrients your plants need. As the wood decomposes, it releases nutrients. Studies from the University of Vermont show that hardwood chips release about 4 pounds of nitrogen, 2 pounds of phosphorus, and 4 pounds of potassium per ton of wood. That's the same nutrient profile you get from adding chemical fertilizers, except it's happening naturally over years. And here's the key difference from traditional composting. It's slow. You're not waiting for everything to break down and then getting a one-time nutrient boost. You're getting a steady, gradual release of nutrients year after year after year. A single Hugelkultur bed built with good hardwood like oak or maple can provide nutrient release for 20 years. In cool climates like Montana, it can last for 60 years. That's decades of free fertilizer baked into your garden. You're not buying bags from the garden center, you're not mixing in compost every spring, and you're not wondering about your soil's fertility. It's already taken care of. Furthermore, as the wood decomposes, it creates a specific kind of soil environment. This is important, so pay attention. The decomposition of wood is primarily driven by fungi, not bacteria. Fungi are the masters of breaking down lignin, the tough, hard part of wood that takes years to break down. This means your Hugelkultur bed becomes a fungal-dominant ecosystem. Now, is that bad? No, actually. Fungi create mycelial networks that transport nutrients to your plants. They break down organic matter into available nutrients and form symbiotic relationships with plant roots. Some plants are connected to the same fungal network underground that connects them to trees across the entire forest. It's called the wood wide web, and it's how nutrients and information move through a healthy ecosystem. The fungal dominant soil in a Hugelkultur bed is the same ecosystem you see in a healthy forest. Is it different from the bacterial dominant soil you get in a quick hot compost pile? Yes, but it's not worse. It's different for a reason. The only potential downside is if you want to grow quick turnaround crops like lettuce in the very first year. Fungal dominant soil is better for perennials and fruit trees, but if you're growing vegetables, you'll be fine with proper topsoil preparation. Here's something that amazes most people. As the wood decomposes and shrinks, it doesn't just disappear, it creates space. All those tiny air pockets I mentioned, imagine a log that's 1 foot in diameter. As it decomposes and shrinks over 5 years, it might become 6 inches in diameter, then 3 inches, then nothing. But those gaps are now air pockets in your soil. They allow roots to penetrate deeply, they allow air circulation, and they improve drainage. Traditional gardeners spend hours working their soil with tillers and turning compost piles to create this same aeration. Hugelkultur does it for you over time automatically. It's self-tilling. This is why Paul Wheaton recommends making Hugelkultur beds steep. Steep beds mean that soil won't compact over time from rain or pressure. The sloped surface sheds water down the sides, and because people won't walk on steep beds, the soil remains fluffy and aerated. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. There is one problem with Hugelkultur, especially in the first year, and I want to address this head-on because it's the biggest thing keeping people from trying this method. As fresh wood decomposes, it requires nitrogen to break down. Wood is mostly carbon. To decompose all that carbon, the microbes breaking it down need nitrogen. And if that nitrogen isn't available in the surrounding soil, guess where the microbes get it from? They pull it from your soil. They pull it from the nutrients available to your plants. This is called nitrogen immobilization, and it's a real documented phenomenon. So in the first year of a brand new Hugelkultur bed, there's a real possibility, especially if you use fresh, undecayed wood, that your plants might be slightly nitrogen deficient. Your leaves might be paler green, your growth might be slower, and you might not get the explosive harvest you were hoping for. Now here's the good news. This is not a deal breaker, and it's definitely not permanent. First, the nitrogen deficiency is only really bad if you use super fresh wood. If you use wood that's already been dead for a couple of years, wood that's already partially decomposed, the problem is much less severe. The wood has already gone through most of the nitrogen-intensive decomposition. Second, there are simple solutions, and I'm going to give you 3 of them. Solution 1. Plant nitrogen-fixing crops in year 1. In your first year, instead of planting high nitrogen-demanding crops like tomatoes or leafy greens, plant nitrogen-fixing crops. These are plants that actually pull nitrogen from the air and convert it into a form plants can use. The best ones are legumes, peas, beans, clover. Plant these in your first year, and they'll actually add nitrogen to your soil instead of removing it. Then in year 2, you can plant whatever you want. Your soil will be richer than it was when you started. Solution 2. Add nitrogen-rich material to the top layer. When you're building your Hugelkultur bed, make sure your top layer of soil is rich. Mix in finished composts, add grass clippings, add composted manure or coffee grounds, anything high in nitrogen. Your plant roots will be in this top layer in year 1, and they'll be able to access all that nitrogen without having to compete with the decomposing wood below. This is actually the method most experienced Hugelkultur gardeners use. They don't worry about the nitrogen issue because they prepared their top layer carefully. And guess what? It works. Their plants don't show any nitrogen deficiency because the roots aren't relying on the wood's decomposition for nutrients in year 1. Solution 3. Use decaying wood, not fresh wood. If possible, use wood that's already been down for a couple of years. This wood has already gone through most of the nitrogen-intensive decomposition, and the problem largely disappears. That's it. Those are the solutions, and honestly, most gardeners who build a Hugelkultur bed and take just one of these steps, never notice a nitrogen problem at all. University of Wisconsin research actually found that even with fresh wood, plants grown in Hugelkultur beds didn't show any actual nutrient deficiency. The theoretical nitrogen lockup doesn't always translate to real-world problems, especially if you've prepared your top layer properly. Think about it this way. The decomposing wood takes some nitrogen temporarily, but it's happening below the root zone in year 1. By year 2 and beyond, that same wood is releasing nitrogen back into the soil. It's not a permanent loss, it's a temporary loan. Now let me show you how to actually build a Hugelkultur bed. I'm going to give you the easiest method, not the most extreme Paul Wheaton 7-foot version, but something practical for most home gardeners. Step 1, choose your location. Pick a spot in your yard that should be relatively flat and get good sun for whatever you're growing. Don't put it under a roof overhang where it won't get rainfall. Part of the system is collecting water from rain. You want maximum exposure to rainfall so your sponge can absorb as much water as possible. Also, think about your neighbors. If you're in an urban area, a 7-foot mound might cause some concern, but a 2 or 3-foot mound is less dramatic. You can always start small and add to it later. Building method 1 is the lazy method, building on the ground. If you don't want to dig, just lay down cardboard or newspaper on your chosen spot. The cardboard suppresses grass and weeds. You could even do this on top of concrete if you wanted to. This is actually perfect if you're dealing with a sod lawn and you don't want to dig. Then you pile your materials right on top, starting with your largest wood. Building method 2 is the better method, a shallow trench. If you don't mind a little digging, dig a shallow trench, maybe 2 feet deep. You don't need to go super deep, just enough to accommodate your first layer of wood. This gives you a place to nestle the wood so it doesn't roll around and gets built into the soil. Then as you build up, the mound will naturally be higher and the wood will be integrated with the surrounding soil. If you dig a trench, you can put the sod you removed upside down on top of the wood layer. This creates a barrier, prevents roots from reaching the fresh wood immediately, and gives you extra organic matter. Step 2, layer your wood. Now comes the fun part. If you have access to fallen logs or dead trees, perfect. You can often get free wood from tree service companies or firewood suppliers who have excess. They're often happy to get rid of it instead of chipping it. Lay the largest pieces of wood first. Logs, big branches. Leave small gaps, maybe 2 or 3 inches, between them so you can pack soil in the cracks. This is important. You're not building a solid log wall. You're building a log lattice that will have soil filling the spaces. If you're using the trench method, nestle them into the trench. If you're using the ground method, just lay them on the cardboard. Don't make your base layer too narrow. If it's narrower than 2 feet, your final mound will be too steep and soil and mulch will slide down in heavy rains. Aim for a base that's at least 3 to 4 feet wide. One more thing, hardwoods are better than softwoods. Alder, apple, aspen, birch, cottonwood, maple, oak, poplar, willow, these are all excellent. They decompose slowly, so your bed will last longer. If you have access to softwoods like pine or fir, they're acceptable. They'll just decompose faster. Some experienced gardeners layer softwoods on top for quick nutrient release and hardwoods on the bottom for long-term stability. Woods to absolutely avoid. Black walnut, toxic to most plants. Black locust, won't decompose. And cedar or juniper. Too many antimicrobial compounds that will suppress fungi. If you're unsure about a wood, research it or just skip it. Step 3, add your first soil layer. Take soil. You can use the soil you dug out of the trench if you dug one, and fill in all the gaps between the wood. Cover the wood completely by about 1 to 2 inches. This helps stabilize everything and prevents wood from rolling. If you want to add some nitrogen at this stage, you can mix in some grass clippings, manure, or other green material. This will help activate the decomposition process and provide some nitrogen. Step 4, add your second layer of wood. Now add medium-sized branches and wood pieces on top of that soil layer. Again, leave small gaps. This doesn't need to be perfect. You're going for a rustic look anyway. Sepp Holzer's beds aren't perfectly engineered. They're just piles of wood and soil that work because of the basic principles, not because of construction perfection. Step 5, add your second soil layer. Repeat the process. Soil in, filling the gaps, covering the wood. Some people add additional layers of alternating wood and soil if they're making a really tall bed. But for a practical home garden, 2 layers of wood is usually enough. Paul Wheaton builds incredibly tall beds with multiple layers, but he's also got the space and equipment to do it. You don't need to go that extreme. Step 6. Top layer finished soil and compost. Now comes your top layer. This is the critical part for year 1 success. Make this layer thick, at least 4 to 6 inches, preferably 8 inches or more. Use your best soil, mix it with finished compost, and add some peat moss or coco coir if you have it. This is what your plant roots will be living in during year 1. Make it rich, make it good. Think of this as your premium topsoil layer. If you want to add nitrogen to prevent any deficiency, this is where you do it. Mix in some grass clippings, coffee grounds, or composted manure into this top layer. You can even add a nitrogen-rich fertilizer if you want to be really careful about year 1 deficiency, but most people find that a good rich compost mixed into the top layer is enough. Step 7. Mulch everything. On top of everything, add a layer of mulch 2 to 3 inches deep. Use wood chips, straw, leaves, or whatever you have. This insulates the soil, retains moisture, and prevents erosion. The mulch also breaks down over time and adds even more organic matter to your system. Step 8. Water it well. After you've built your bed, water the entire thing thoroughly. This helps everything settle and activates the decomposition process. Water until you see water coming out the bottom. Really saturate it. Then plant. You're done. You're officially done building. No more work on construction, just plant and maintain. How big should you make it? A practical size for a home garden is about 3 to 4 feet tall and maybe 8 feet long and 4 feet wide. That gives you decent surface area, but isn't so tall that you look ridiculous or it becomes unstable. If you make it taller, 5 or 6 feet, you get more benefits, more water storage, more surface area because the sides are sloped, and a longer growing season. But it also requires more wood and more soil to build. Paul Wheaton advocates for really tall beds, 6 or 7 feet, and I get it. The benefits are exceptional. You might not need to water at all, but you don't need to go that extreme to get the benefits. Even a 3-foot bed will give you amazing results. Let me set expectations for what happens after you build your Hugelkultur bed, because I want you to understand the timeline. Year 1, the good. Your plants will have excellent drainage. You'll probably not need to water much, maybe once a week or less depending on your climate and rainfall. In most climates, once you've watered it in and the wood has absorbed water, you'll be amazed at how little watering you need. Your soil will be rich and dark as the top layer composts down from regular watering and decomposition. You'll notice it becoming deeper and richer. Earthworms and beneficial insects will colonize it quickly within weeks. You'll see worm burrows and insect activity. Your plants will grow well. Even with the potential nitrogen issue I mentioned, most crops do fine in year 1 if you've prepared your top layer properly. Year 1, the adjustment. You might notice some settling. As the wood decomposes and the layers compress, your bed will settle by a few inches. This is totally normal. Just add fresh compost to the top as it settles. Think of it like making an espresso. You tamp it down, then it settles, and you tamp again. If you used very fresh wood and didn't add much nitrogen-rich material, your plants might be slightly paler or grow a bit slower than usual, but they'll still grow. They won't fail. By mid-season, as the top layer's nutrients become available, growth usually accelerates. The bed might get a bit muddy or waterlogged at first. You're essentially creating a water storage system, and it takes a little while for the balance to establish. You might have areas that stay wet longer than you'd like. By mid-season, you'll see this balance out as the wood starts absorbing and releasing water properly. Year 2 and beyond, the magic. This is where it gets really good. By year 2, the decomposition process is well underway. The nitrogen situation completely resolves. Your plants will have access to steady nutrient release from the decomposing wood. Your soil will be darker, richer, and more alive. You'll literally see earthworms and fungal networks if you dig into the side. You'll need even less water, possibly none, unless you're in a severe drought. The bed is now a fully functional water storage and nutrient release system. You're not buying anything. You're not mixing anything. You're just gardening. Yields increase noticeably because the environment is so good, well-drained, well-aerated, rich in nutrients, and naturally watered. Your plants will often outperform plants in traditional gardens. Sepp Holzer reports that his yields are 2 to 3 times higher than conventional gardens. Your results might vary depending on your setup, but improvement is consistent. And here's the beautiful part. You'll never turn this bed. You'll never add more compost or fertilizer in year 2 or beyond. You'll just plant, you'll harvest, and you'll mulch. The bed will get better and better each year as more organic matter decomposes and feeds the system. The long game, decades of benefits. If you use good hardwood like oak or maple, that bed will provide benefits for 20, 30, even 60 years. You've essentially created a permanent garden bed that maintains itself. Think about that. You spend 3 or 4 days building it, you might add mulch annually, and for the next 20 years, you have a garden bed that's continuously improving, continuously becoming richer, and continuously providing better and better growing conditions. Compare that to traditional gardening, where you're adding compost or fertilizer every year, amending your soil constantly, and working to maintain fertility. Hugelkultur is the opposite. It's a set it and forget it system. Not completely forget it, you still plant and harvest, but forget about soil management. Now I know some of you are skeptics, and you should be. There's been an explosion of Hugelkultur hype online, and not all of it is deserved. Some people claim Hugelkultur beds dramatically outperform regular gardens by 200 or 300%. The evidence for that is mixed. Some gardeners report excellent results. Others report no difference. Research shows it depends on your climate, your soil, the quality of your wood, and your management. The honest truth, Hugelkultur is not a miracle system. It's a good system, a really good system, but it's not going to turn a failing garden into a super producer overnight. What it will do, reduce your watering needs dramatically, often by 50 to 75%, eliminate the need to buy and amend soil every year, provide steady nutrient release for decades, turn waste wood into productive growing space, create a self-aerated, well-structured soil, require almost zero maintenance after year 1, and extend your growing season by 1 to 2 weeks. And honestly, that's enough. That's a really solid system that's worth building. So here's my challenge for you. If you have fallen wood in your yard, if you have branches lying around, if you're tired of buying bags of compost and fertilizer every year, and if you're tired of watering your garden constantly, try building one Hugelkultur bed. You don't need to build a 6-foot-tall monstrosity. Build a 3-foot-tall bed. Use whatever wood you have access to. Spend a weekend on it, plant it, then live with it for a year. Then come back next summer and tell me how it's doing. I want to know if your water needs went down, if your plants grew better, if your soil improved, and if you regret it or if you're now planning to build a second one. Leave those results in the comments because the real data comes from gardeners like you, not from YouTube videos or permaculture bloggers. You're the ones doing the actual work. You're the ones living with the results. Your experience matters more than any theory. And if you're interested in more videos about practical, low-work gardening methods, techniques that actually reduce your workload instead of increasing it, hit that subscribe button. This is just the beginning of me exploring how to build gardens that work with nature instead of against it. Gardens that get better every year without you getting more tired. Thanks for watching and happy gardening. If this story changes the way you look at the fallen logs and debris in your backyard, please subscribe and like the channel. We are digging deep into the sustainable secrets that history tried to bury. Let's cultivate a better future together. The next gardening treasure will be unearthed very soon.